Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to ditch the outdated beliefs, release the blocks, and fully embrace your sovereignty so you can confidently expand to allow more love, joy, and aligned success in your life. I am Niajae, your conscious accountability partner, reminding you that abundance is your birthright. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? If you're joining me for the first time, although M&Ms are really yummy candies, it actually stands for magical manifestors because we are manifesting by default. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know that you want to manifest abundance. So today's guest is Ber-Henda Williams, and she's a visionary and empath coach. And we're going to talk about how she helps empaths. But before we dive in, I want to ask you, Ber-Henda, what does abundance mean to you?
I love this question so much because I've been stewing on it myself, and I've been really in deep meditation and doing a multi-day journey around like the pillars of abundance. And for me, abundance is it's just a life that is just full and rich, and it's well. There's just wellness. Um, yes, it can be financial, but sometimes we can have money and still be spiritually bankrupt. So for me to be in the abundant life, it's a life that fully satiates you. You feel purpose, and you feel expansive.
Yes, I love it. And I felt it when you said spiritually bankrupt. I felt that because so many people are experiencing that. They're checking the boxes, but they're not experiencing the fulfillment. So yes, I love that. So tell us about you. Who is Ber-Henda?
So first and foremost, I will say I'm a child of God. That's who I am. I know that there is a universal presence that is never an absence, that is living and breathing and expressing as me and as you and as all of the listeners. And I believe it is through, activating the Christ consciousness within ourselves, we're able to be that one light that illuminates many things. And so even my name, when I was younger, I didn't really like my name, but it wasn't until I was in college, in undergrad, and I kind of had this professor, this Shakespeare professor. He kind of reminds you of like a nutty professor, like he just knew too many things. Like, how do you know everything? And his office was like an obstacle course. It looked like Hogwarts because it literally looked like it had books like just kind of hovering everywhere. And he says, Ber-Henda, dear girl, do you know what your name means? I mean, he's just so, Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare teacher. And I'm like, no. He was like, pitchy, dear girl. Your name is so powerful. And I'm like, well, pray tell, sir, what does it mean? It means bear heart. And he told me that in Germanic and Scandinavian mythology, the warriors would don themselves in bear skins to absorb the energy of the bear so that they would be fearless.
Mm.
I know, right? I was like, ooh, that's okay. All right. I was like, I'm okay. So I'm here. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So um, so my name, Bear Heart of Protector, because my father's name is Henricus, Hedge of Protection. I'm like, oh wow, Bear Heart of Protector. So I think that, as your listeners are tuning in, um, for a lark, research your own name because our names are prayers. And what does your name mean? There's a vibration that's associated with your name. And when we live out, the full edicts of, what we've been called, I believe that can be a blueprint into a deeper awareness of what we're here to do.
I love it. And I love how your name means something pertaining to absorbing, because that is what we're going to talk about as far as empaths. So it just literally was your destiny. Like this is your purpose to help serve in this way. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So when did you first discover that you were an empath and be introduced to what being empathic even means?
I would say it was like breadcrumbs. It's something that I've known all my life. I knew I was different. I knew that I was very sensitive. I knew I had awarenesses, and I don't know where I got these awarenesses from. Like even as small as 18 months, my dad told me that he and my mom, pushing me in the stroller, and I told them to look up, not fully formulated like that, but I told them to look. And instead of saying like sky or sun, I said to them space. And then they kind of looked at each other because what 18-month old knows what space is? And they said, you were real matter of fact. And even when I was born, um, my dad said, when he held me, it was like I'd been here before. I was just looking around. I didn't cry. I was just taking an inventory and just looking at the doctor and looked at him and looked at looked at my mom and kind of looked kind of curious, like, oh, okay, so okay, all right, taking the lay of the land, all right. So they were like, what? Who is this child? So it would be study things like that, and just all throughout my life, I was just always just really curious about people and cultures and systems and like the tick of a thing and like how things, work and what are people's psychology. And then of course the deep feeling, right? Being in a room and absorbing, the energy of that particular room or being in a particular place where you're like, ooh, something happened here. What's the history, behind this place? I remember I was, working when I was working the 9 to 5, I was in a place where actually there was a fire, a really deadly fire. It was a
Oh,
huge
wow.
fire. A lot of people lost their lives. And I'm like, okay, that's why I always feel this deep sadness or like anxiety coming into this building.
Mhm. So interesting. So I feel personally that we're all empathic to a different degree. And when I reached out to you about what you do, you said that there are 17 different types of
Oh,
empaths.
yes.
Because I feel like empaths, like empathic or empaths became kind of a buzzword, especially in the coaching industry. So I'm like, everyone is empathic in a sense. We have intuition. Everyone has intuition, and our intuition communicates differently. So when people say I am an empath, sometimes they're kind of using it as like a almost like a disclaimer, like I'm sensitive because I'm an empath. And so sometimes when I hear people say that, I'm like, we're all empathic to a certain degree. Whether we're
Absolutely.
connected to it or not is different. Like some people suppress and dismiss their intuition, but I love how you have broken it down to where there's 7 different types of empaths, because I haven't heard that. So I'd love for you to explain more about that.
Sure. I love that you brought that up because I do feel like it's sort of a buzzword and it can also shirk us the responsibility from making and acknowledging um, the necessity for us to make contributions to the planet. And what I mean by that is systemic racism is real. This is not something that is fictitious, that has been made up. All of the isms, the homophobia, the xenophobia, just all of the forms of discrimination that exist on our planet to keep us separate from one another. And so, as an empath or a person who identifies as someone who can feel the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of another person, there's a responsibility to um, understand your role in the cultural shift that we need to have on the planet. And with the 17 um, types, I'll go over just a few. People can head over to my website and download the free gift and look at them in their entirety. But of course, there's first clear cognizant, clear sentient, empath. So clear cognizant, clear knowing, clear sentient, um, clear feeling. But there's also animal empaths, and there are plant empaths, and there are astral empaths who may sometimes feel like they're leaving their body. They're precognitive empaths who may have premonitions that they get. Now, you can be more than one type of empath. And so, a few famous empaths are one, Harriet Tubman, who was a dream empath. And so, if anyone has seen the film or read anything about her life, she was a narcoleptic. She suffered from narcolepsy. But in her mind, it wasn't a deficit. She looked at it, no, it was God speaking to her in dreams. And she didn't lose one passenger on that Underground Railroad. So it gave, in her dreams, she would forecast ahead and knew exactly which pathway to take to avoid being caught. I know. Doesn't that give you chills? That gives me
Oh my
chills.
goodness. I never knew that. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, her dreams were her navigational system. So when she would
Wow.
kind of go into a stupor, she would get these visions. And so, I mean, we know that throughout many indigenous cultures throughout the world, they know that the transcendental state is a space where you can receive downloads and receive information. And I mean, modern day, we can take that to our meditation. And George Washington Carver, who found 100 uses of the peanut, he said the plant spoke to him
Hmm.
and he had a kinship with the earth. Like he can put his hands in earth and you can feel seismic activity, especially for those who are either plant or geomantic empaths, where you can put your hands, down on the earth or in a space. You can feel the energetics of the space. So the plants talked to him. And so he was able to derive 100 uses of peanut. Well, because the peanut, so this is what I can do.
You are rocking my world right now. Oh my God, I love this so much. I love this so much because it takes it to another level. So I've done an episode about the 8 clear abilities. So the clear
Mhm.
cognizance, clear sentient, clear audience. And so I believe that we have access to all of them, but it's only probably 1 or 2 that are activated within us. But I feel like
Mhm.
if we really tune in, we can access more. But I feel like this is like next level of what's possible. And yeah, oh, this is so good, so good. so
Okay.
so if someone's like, okay, I want to find out what type of empath I am, how do you go about that?
Absolutely. So they can head over to my website, berhendawilliams.com. I'm the only Ber-Henda in the world. I Google myself. So I mean, you will not be in the wrong place. And you can click, you can click right there on the homepage and download your free gift. And it'll give you the 17 types of it. Well, also it'll give you a diagnostic to one, see if you're an empath or highly sensitive. So there is a subtle difference between being highly sensitive and being empathic. A highly sensitive person, yes, is susceptible to their environment and to people. Um, the empath is, yes, like let's say fluorescent lights, they have an avoidance of like large crowds, they don't want to be around a lot of people, they find comfort and solace in nature, they may even enjoy animals. This is why I love going to the airport and seeing the animal companions that comfort people. But the empath is going to absorb the energy. They're going to get a feeling locally in their bodies where they'll pick up information from the environment or from a person. So I had a client actually share with me that she sat down next to someone in church and felt their stomach issues. So medical empaths, that's a thing too. So if people are have leanings toward uh, Reiki or any kind of like touch therapy, if they have an intuitive hit on different maybe herbs and remedies that they can put together that help someone that is ailing, you probably are a medical empath.
Okay, so I love to dive a little bit deeper into this because I've
Mhm,
been following the different Claire abilities, and
mhm,
I believe Claire cognizance is Claire knowing.
mhm, mhm.
So so do you have to feel it physically? Like if you're an empath, do you have to feel it physically, or would you say if someone's clear cognizance and they just have a knowing, like maybe
Mhm.
the lady who sat next to the woman in church, maybe she knew that she had a stomach issue, but she didn't feel it physically?
Oh, she felt it. She felt it physically.
Well, I'm just saying, if like, does all empaths feel things physically?
Oh, no, 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 no. Yeah,
Okay.
no. You're so, and that's why it's super important to become very self-aware of how your intuition works, because some people won't get feelings and like the clairvoyance, those that can see, some people won't see. I can feel, my grandmother's presence. She made her transition in 2017, and I feel her presence all the time. I feel it. Whereas my great great aunt, she's present, but she shows up and actually I posted it on my page. I was in Puerto Rico last week, and my sister was like, "Hey, take a picture of this door. It's really cool." Unbeknownst to us, the door was 1906. 1906 was the year she was born.
Mm.
So she shows up in more subtle, subtle ways. So again, it may not necessarily be a physical sensation. You may just get like an audible, or you may get, again, like you said, like a knowing. But there's other clairs, like the clairgustance, clairaudience, clear hearing, but even clear embodiment and clear empathy. So like there is so many like levels and layers to this, which is super important for us to become aware, because we really are in a place of really great flux on the planet right now. And it's super important for us. And I love, and that's why I'm so excited about the work that you do and what you're bringing. And I know we'll get to this to our retreat, because a healed empath is an empowered empath. And sometimes the shadow side of being empathic is that you feel so much. You also can get tripwired and have your own pain reignited. So, for example, if you haven't healed the inner child and you still have childhood trauma issues, which is really where the gift gets ignited or activated, is because you have to be safe in your environment. And if there's turbulence in the home, you are the one that is vigilant, especially if you have younger siblings. You're the caregiver, you're the peacemaker, right? And that disturbance creates an awareness to you that you have to be hyper vigilant and aware, and that's a trauma response. And so, what we really want to do is work on um, that knowing and peace that is possible. And this is why things like meditation, Reiki, and sound healing are really essential for empaths. These aren't like luxury items like, oh, this is a nice, no, it's not a fun. No, this is paramount. This is
Yeah.
this is really something that you have to have because of the calling on your life right now on the planet.
Yeah. So one thing that I've gotten really good, especially with the work that I do, at realizing who absorbs people's energy. Like I can actually see a shift in people when they're around certain people. And then so if someone's like, okay, I am highly empathic and I don't want to necessarily absorb people's energy, how can people protect or create some type of barrier so they're not just picking up anyone's energy?
Absolutely. So that really starts with owning your day and closing up your evening. And so what I mean by that is, you're in a very hypnagogic state, which is when we kind of like are between sleep and awake. And so when we're in that state of waking up or going to sleep, your subconscious is very susceptible. So this is why, jumping on social media and answering email first thing in the morning. Go, 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 go. Closing your evening out. So like 45 minutes, 30 minutes before you go to bed, no technology, because you don't want those energetics, coming with you into your sleep world, because that's where your body is really able to heal and repair. So what I highly recommend is some sort of prayer meditation first thing in the morning. If you don't know what to do, you can get something like a journal, a devotional. YouTube has plenty of guided meditations. It's this amazing place. Some of my favorite are like Bob Proctor, because I love like the law of vibration. So that's really important and key. And then when you go to sleep at night, resting to binaural beats. And so any frequency 527, which is the frequency of love, 527 or above is going to be really cathartic and healing for you. And if you need, more support, I would say put your feet on the ground wherever it is that you are, in your bedroom, your office, or even your car. Just planting your feet so that you can earth or ground, depending on what part of the world you're in. It might be cold, some parts of you, so you can't put your bare feet on the earth, but that's good. And ground yourself and then imagine a white light sort of bubble enveloping you that's impenetrable. And then you can then have your energy protected. And then in the evening, call your energy back to you. So you can retrieve your energy. So that bubble can ground you, shield you, really all throughout the day. And if you feel, um, a bit penetrated by it, I highly recommend some essential oils or Bach flower essences, and just put a few dabs on a cotton pad, not a cotton ball, but a cotton pad. Put it in a Ziploc baggie, seal it up because it'll last you for several months. Pull it out, take a whiff of it. Lavender is very calming. Just pull it out when you feel your senses are overwhelmed, and that'll actually help you get realigned.
Okay, so you just said so much there.
Oh no.
so so with I'm a huge advocate for binaural beats, and then also if someone is wanting something a little more custom, Abundant and Aligned Society, I send sound therapy recordings, I send like guided meditations, journaling, journal exercises, inspirational text messages throughout the week to hold you accountable. So if you've been on the fence of joining, that's definitely a really great thing that speaks to everything that she just said. And I did a podcast episode recently about flower essences. So what she mentioned, the Bach flower essences, I love them. So I had someone make a custom blend for me, but you can also get Bach. It's Bach, correct?
Hmm.
So you can
Like
get
Johann Sebastian Bach. Yep.
so
Just like the composer.
you can purchase that from like Whole Foods or like any like natural store, and you can take them topically, so put like a few drops under your tongue, or you can even diffuse them. So I never knew about putting them in like on a cotton pad and putting it in a
Hmm.
Ziploc, because then you can just like pop it in your purse or wherever you want to go. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, I like it. So
That's it.
good. Yeah. And creating that barrier. I talk about grounding all the time. So I just want to echo everything so they hear like everything you just mentioned. Grounding is essential, especially if you're an empath. So just releasing whatever it is to Gaia and absorbing the earth's
Hmm.
frequency. It's so
Hmm.
important. If you were looking for a sign, here it is. This is your reminder to not settle, to know your worth, and to follow your bliss. This is a reminder to maintain alignment and show up in your fullest expression. Abundant and Aligned Society is an accountability program to remind you that you are a powerful being and you deserve to live the life you truly desire. Go to niajae.com/society to join in on the magic, because life is meant to be abundant. Creating a bubble. So if you could just elaborate on pulling your energy back at the end of the day, just elaborate on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So, I say you can, face wherever your window is as you close out, your wherever you close out your evening, and just, literally, call your energy back and just say, I call my energy back to me. I release all energies that don't belong to me, and I invoke and I call back all energy that belongs to me. Now, with that, I'm going to be careful because we're always um in a state of growth and change. So there could be some energies that don't serve you anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
you can also, say, I release all energies that no longer serve me. And I invite in, the new frequency, new vibration. So there could be some things that left you that you don't even want to call back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where meditation, and that's why I say, your connection to God, source, spirit, universe, whatever, because you make it personal. So I call it lover of my soul. Lover of my soul, what do I need to release? Lover of my soul, what do I need to attract and help me be a representation of you? Because that's all we are. So we're I look at the universe or God as the ocean, and we're all drops, in this ocean. It's no less ocean, it's a drop or away. So, how do we really enact our fullest potential?
Mm. I love it. And so I call it the theta state, but you used a word
Hmm.
hypnot. What was the word you
Hypnagogic.
said?
Yeah, the hypnagogic state.
Hypnagogic. Okay. I'm going to write that down. Okay.
Hmm.
So what I love to dive into is how you help empaths tap into abundance, or how can an empath like use their gifts to tap into abundance?
Yeah. So, again, getting really familiar with your gifts. So, everything we know is frequency and a vibration. And so anytime that there's an issue or a problem, the solution is vibrating above that issue or the problem. So I would just again invite questioning. And I'm in love with the purple. That's our, so I run a girls leadership program and that's our color. So I am just in love. And that's another, so the violet flame. Okay. Get into it. be all be all about it, because what's more attractive than love? And in love, that's the key to everything. Anything that you could want or desire is to remember who you are. Remember who you are. It's not like what was it in the Lion King? He was like, remember who you are. But it's so true. You have to remember who you are. You're not in a space of, necessarily attracting when you become the thing. So when you are abundance, that's all you're ever going to have around you in your orbit. And again, sometimes we have this misconception that it's solely money. I mean, that's a part of it, but more aptly, abundance is your birthright. That's who you are. You are abundant.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say that in the intro, abundance is your
Mhm.
birthright. So I'm all about it. So this has been so good, and I feel like the violet flame could literally be a whole episode by
Oh,
itself.
that's a
So
whole
we're
episode.
yeah, so we're not going to dive into that this episode. We'll plan the next one just to talk about that, because that's a whole other topic. So I want to end with one final question. What
Sure.
are your top 3 tips for living an abundant life?
Top 3 tips for living abundant life. So one, first and foremost, surrender. You have to remember your life is not your own. You are so wonderfully made by a divine architect. So whatever you're doing or have been doing, surrender, because your best laid plans, there's something so much more that would exceed, your wildest imagination. So in abundance, I would say first and foremost, surrender. Then um, awareness. Become aware. Survey, your environment. Survey your thoughts. Journaling is a great way to kind of get what's up here out so that you can clearly, see. So I would say surrender, awareness, and then really it's about moving and making and taking inspired actions, because the universe is alive. God is alive and always speaking to us. So our empaths, you've probably seen the angel numbers. You might have heard a song come on at a interesting, like, oh wow, that's curious. That's speaking to a license plate number. You might get a text message or a phone call. So just be in a state of awareness and an expectation, because again, this is your birthright. You don't have to necessarily do anything to be more abundant, as much as it's in a state of surrender. And in our Western culture, it's always about moving and doing and acquiring more, but you want your soul to be satisfied.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first one, surrender, I honestly have to say that was the hardest for me. The hardest. So I received a download, whatever you want to call it, when I was young. I was in church, and the preacher said, God will use you as he sees fit to like make
Mm-hmm.
a difference in a world. And I was like, oh, no, no, thank you.
Mm-mm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. I don't want him to
Same.
use me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
want him to use me. I want my life to be about me. And like that was my feeling. And so I resisted my gifts for so long, for
Mm-hmm.
so long. And then one day I was like, all right, I surrender. I just, okay, go ahead. Just like, but I really had a lot of resistance around it. And I find that we when we have that resistance, we're making life harder on ourselves because we're pushing
Right.
against our purpose, we're pushing against our gifts, and people are in this space of resistance, and they're like, why is this happening to me, and why is this happening to me, and why this and why that? It's because they're resisting their purpose, they're resisting their gifts.
That's right.
And it just, when you surrender, things shift massively.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because again, you have a lover of your soul. It gives God good pleasure to see you whole, healed, and complete, and to see you abundant. I mean, just even getting with that, right? Getting with that consciousness that you have something that is the maker and creator of heaven and earth, all things that we see, is so concerned about you, and that derives joy from blessing you. Yeah. If that doesn't give you chills, like I don't know what, that it's so concerned about you.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. So where can people find you online? I know you mentioned your website. So if you want to say it
Yes,
one more time, and if you have any other social media links you want to mention.
absolutely. So you can find me at my website, berhendawilliams.com. That's BER hyphen HENDA Williams.com. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook, all under Ber-Henda Williams. So all those places you can find me under my name. And I would love to, yeah, to commune with your followers.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out to chat. And I know you have so much going on, and I for like events, usually like I want the podcast to be evergreen. So I would just say, whenever you're listening to this, go follow her, go find out what type of empath you are, because I believe we all are empathic. So go figure out what your
Mhm.
specific gifts are, because I feel like it's going to unlock so much for you and make so much sense, because our intuition is always communicating to us. And when you
Mhm.
hone in on how your intuition is communicating to you, it guides you in life. You have that inner guidance, that inner wisdom. So this, I love it, I love it. I'm like, yes, this is so good.
Well, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. All right, M&Ms, until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.